Hello, and welcome to episode 8 of Time Between Times storytelling. Something a little different today, something older, yet newer, one of the classics. The Signalman by Charles Dickens, one of the greatest ghost stories ever written. Charles Dickens' greatest ghost story, and he wrote A Christmas Carol. Okay, if you haven't heard it before, go and have a read. A brilliant story. And only he could do it justice. But this is my version. This is different. Not a Welsh or Celtic folk tale, but an old-fashioned ghost story for round the fireplace. So, without further ado, let's get on with it. Welcome to the time between times. The time when it is neither night nor day, but the sun has gone and the sky is grey. The time between times, the time when people used to tell stories. The time when people would gather at the fireplace. The time when people would see lights in the sky. The time that people would see ghosts. The time when the veil between our world and the fairy world grows wafer thin. Let's leave behind all our modern trappings. Let's leave behind our worries, our concerns, our fretting. Let's relax, sit back and enjoy a tale for the telling. And this is one of those. This is The Signalman by Charles Dickens. It wasn't long ago that I lost my wife. And the doctor told me I should perambulate. I should go around and visit places in the country. I should meet new people. I should walk, taking the air, taking the sea air, taking the country air, and get out of London. And I decided to take his advice. After a couple of months, I found myself staying in a small country inn near a small village, which I shall not mention or name. I was walking at what the locals would call the time between times, the times the sky was grey, but wasn't quite time to return to the inn. I walked above what could only be described as a cleft in the ground. A bridge covered it, and there below I could see the hut of a railwayman or a signalman. I stood over on top of the bridge and looked down towards the rail which ran in a north to south direction directly under me. After a few moments, a railway train passed underneath me and I was covered with steam. It was unbelievable. And then I saw him, the signalman, dressed in head to toe in a railwayman's uniform, flat cap, blue coat, and carrying with him a small flag. As the train passed, he waved the flag in a number of combinations which were alien to me totally. And then, as the train went off into the distance, I saw him start to move around with the apparatus which controlled the junctions there. I was fascinated. It'd been a long day and I'd not had a chance to speak to anyone of note, so I decided to call down. Maybe he would chat with me. Maybe we could share a cup of tea. Maybe we could watch the sun go down. And I called, "Hello, below there! Hello, below there!" The signalman turned and looked at what was possibly the tunnel underneath me. I called again, "Hello, below there!" But it was a few moments before he directed his sight up towards where I was standing. And then he just stared at me, which I thought was strange, but that's what it's like. Anyway, I decided I couldn't leave it at that, so I would move down and speak to the signalman. So I made my way down a winding stairway cut out of the stone, which came down the bank of the hill, down to where Neera's hut was. And there he greeted me. He moved towards me in his uniform. He had a great big black beard, but a sallow man. He seemed to stare right through me, as if he was looking at the entrance to the tunnel behind me. "Hello," I said. I introduced myself, and he himself. "Why did you call me like that?" he said. "Oh, I just wanted to draw your attention to me." "Oh. Would you like some tea?" he said. And before I could answer, he turned his back and made his way up into the hut, opening the small wooden door and making his way inside. I followed quickly behind him, up the stairs, through the door, into his wooden hut. All around us were the apparatus of the signalman. I could not bear or even think of what all those devices were for. but on the wall was a little red light. There was a fireplace, with some burning embers in it, and 2 seats next to it. The signalman made the tea and sat down in one and beckoned me to sit in the other. He was quite a nice chap. He came across quite well for someone who spent a lot of time alone in his signal box. The evening went on and we spoke about all manner of things. How, when he was younger, he had been quite good, attended lectures and was quite an educated man, but in his own words, he fell foul and fell and did not rise. It was his own fault. He'd made this bed and he was about to lie in it. It was far too late to make another. He was happy with his lot. He had read quite a lot of books while down here. He had learned some languages and was quite happy being the signalman. Darkness fell. I chatted about my own problems, and eventually I picked up and put on my coat and went to bid him farewell. It was then that things took a slight turn. It's hard to explain. But he turned to me and he said, earlier, when you were above the tunnel, you called out, "Look out below there." Well, I said something of the sort. No, those were the exact words that you mentioned. Those are the exact words that you called. Why did you use those words? Well, I don't know. They were just the words that come to me. Is there an issue with the words I've used? There is, he said. Come and visit me again tomorrow, just as the sun starts to fall, just as the sky turns grey. We shall talk some more about it. This was excellent. Someone who valued my company. I bade him farewell, made my way back to the inn, slept the night well, but I could not stop thinking about my new friend and a strange turn that happened at the end of our conversation. The next day I went perambulating in the forest and passed over the tunnel again on the bridge, looked down but could not see him. On my return, it took a little bit longer, but then, at the time that he had mentioned, I made my way down the winding stone steps till I came to his wooden hut once more. I joined him in the same chair by the same fireplace, though tonight it was a little livelier. Again, a cup of hot tea in my hand. I started to speak with the signalman. Did you notice that red light behind you? Yes, I did. Did you notice last night as we spoke? It came on more than once. No, I did not. Well, that is why I asked you about what you said. Look out below there. Look out below there. Yes, I understand what you said, but I don't know why you said it. Maybe you'd like to explain. Yes, I would. It was 2 years ago that I was sat in this very hut. It was winter and it was dark. Sun had long gone. It was a chill, one of those chills that chills you to the very bone. I was sat here drinking from this very mug by this very fireplace, when suddenly that red light behind you, that is the warning light, the signal light. When that red light shines, I know a train is coming. I know that a train will soon come past, and that is the call for me to take my duty and stand by the track. The red light came on. The small bell by the tunnel started to ring, and I put on my coat, and I went outside. I thought it strange, for the time was not the time the train was due. But there, standing in the mouth of the tunnel, was a figure. I could not see his face, for his arm was drawn up like this, and his other arm was waving back and forth, and he called out, "Look out below there! Look out below there!" I said to him, "Who are you? Why do you say these words?" But he echoed again, "Look out below there." I ran towards him, for I felt that maybe this was a man in some distress, and should he stay on the track, he would be hit by the train. I ran towards him and tried to grab him to move his arm from his face. But as I reached him, I ran straight through him. 10, 15 metres into the tunnel. There was nobody there. Just a bit later on, that terrible accident that you must have read about on this line occurred. And 6 people died. And they were laid out on the floor in this very room. I believe what I saw was a spirit or a portent of that accident. But surely that should have been some sort of coincidence, I said. It's quite a disturbing story, but things like that happen. That is not the end. But 6 months later. 6 months, I tell you. Now it was summer, and I was sat in here. The sun was scorching in the sky like a great red orb. I was drinking my tea, when again the red light behind you there came on, and the small bell started to ring. I went outside, and there was the figure again. But this time, both his hands were over his face like such. I have seen such statues upon graves. It was as if he was weeping. He did not say anything, but I rushed towards him again, saying, "Who are you? What do you want? What is it you have?" And again, as I approached him, he vanished. Only an hour later, the train came through. I watched it pass me, full of passengers it was. All of them passed me. I could see heads and arms and legs as they swiftly passed. But then I could see that people were calling for the train to stop. The driver did so. And it was only then that I knew that a beautiful woman had died suddenly. As she had passed through the tunnel, she had fallen to the ground. And again, her body was laid out in this very room. Why did I not know of this earlier? I could have warned her not to travel. I could have said she is not to go on the train. She is ill. But it did happen. What you say is rather strange, but what made you speak of it now? I mean, I used the words, "Look out below there," but there's been no accident. Nothing has happened. Only the night before last. The bell rang, the light came on, and I rushed outside. And there was the figure once more, his arm over his face, waving like such, and calling, "Look out below there. Look out below there." I believe it's important. I believe a great ill will happen, but I do not know what that is. I have heard it said that people who spend a great time alone in places such as this can develop symptoms such as this, and my doctor is quite an expert. Maybe I could take you to see him, and maybe he could answer a few of our questions. No! If I go and see a doctor about this, I will lose my position. They will not put me in this area. They will not leave me here knowing that I am mad. Then I do not know what to suggest, but I am willing to help you. Think on it, please. And maybe if I was to come again tomorrow night when you start, we could discuss it further. Yes, that sounds good to me. Go now again, but come back. We will speak again tomorrow night. I went away once more and made my way up the winding rocks and back to the inn. I had a little sleep that night and got up, breakfasted the next morning, and again went out on a walk. This time I took my walk longer in order to kill the time before I was to meet with the signalman once more, and I passed back at that magical time. The time is neither night nor day, but the sun has gone and the sky is grey. And as I passed, I looked down to where the signalman would normally stand. I could see another man. He had his arm over his face and his hand waving as such. He was dressed in a railwayman's uniform, but different to that of the signalman. Did not wear the hat, and it was obvious that he was a different man. Next to the signalman's hut was a small tent that had been erected, as if to cover something. Another man looked at the first man and seemed to be engaging him in conversation. I thought, I wonder what's happened. And I made my way down the winding steps once more to speak to both men. What's gone on here? What has occurred today? I asked. Sir, I'm sorry, but it's not been the greatest of days, said the senior man. A signalman was killed here this morning. Jack, he called to the man who I'd seen gesticulating, can you demonstrate for this gentleman what had happened? I'm a train driver, sir, and I was driving my train this morning coming out through the tunnel there, and I saw the signalman from this box. I know him well. He's been here for years, and no man in all of England does his job any better. I could see him standing in the entrance of the tunnel, looking directly at the train. He had his hand over his face and his other arm waving like such, and even over the dim of the train, I tried to shout to him, and I shouted, "Look out below there! Get out of the way! Look out below there!" And I tried with all my might, sir, to stop the train, but trains take a long time to stop, and I hit him. And he was killed instantly, hit by the train, sir. What? The signalman is dead, I said. Yes. I had to sit down. I felt a chill run up my spine. For it seems the signalman was right, and the spirit he had seen in his own life had been a portent of his own death. I was in utter shock at this. I bade farewell to the railway workers and packed my bags and left. I came back a week later for his funeral in the local church, but ever since that time I have not been able to get this story, this tale, out of my mind. And it's only today that I can pass this tale on to you. I only met him on a small number of occasions and found him an agreeable man. But something went on there, near the signalman's hut. Something strange, something unusual, something paranormal. But I thought I'd tell you about my encounter with the signalman. That's the end of the story, my friends. The Signalman by Charles Dickens. One of the great ghost stories, and although this is just my version and just skims across the surface really, go and take a look at it. Have a read of it. The language in it is beautiful. The atmosphere conveyed by Dickens, fantastic. Thank you for joining me here again at the Time Between Times. I hope to have another video for you next week. If you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Leave me some nice things to say. Makes me think I'm not just talking to myself and Richard the Ghost. Have a great week, everyone. God bless. Diolch yn fawr. Nos da. Good night.